Hello, welcome back to the third installment of setting up Vue for scalability, where we're breaking down a Vue app to be able to make it so we can build the app as scalable as possible without getting into Vue hell, basically. So I just wanted to go over real quick what we've been going over in the past couple of videos, just kind of a brief layout so you can understand a little bit better how it works. So normally people put their layout inside of app.vue, and I just imported the layout view module from my layout directory. So in here you have the main layout view, which you could put this in app.vue, but I prefer to have it over here. I want everything segmented, everything organized where these files are very small, very simple. App.vue can be for other configuration stuff, maybe for vendor add-ons and stuff like that. This is just for layout stuff. So then we got main and we got header. Main view is where your router view is, where your content's going to show up. And then the header is where I have my nav. Now, like I said, you can make a nav, you can make a footer and put it all in here as well. It's all up to you and how you want to do it. This is just a simple version of this. So today we're going to talk about the store and breaking this down in modularity. So one thing I want to do is first create a directory. Now, since the store is made up of modules, I just create a directory called modules usually. I know in every framework you're going to have a very different way of talking about the store elements. You want to call them just store reducers and redux and modules, whatever you want to call it. But this is the common naming pattern for Vue, so I just chose to call it modules. I'm going to create two different files in here. One is index.js, and one is my actual module, which is todo.js. So if you want to create a to-do, this would be the basis to it. Now the index is for exporting everything that's in the modules directory all at one time so that in my store I don't have to keep importing every time I add a new module to my directory. So essentially what this is going to look like is import modules from /modules. Now, so this will just import the index file right here since that's the main file that gets exported. So we don't have anything exporting from that file right now, so nothing's gonna work. And then in here, what I want to have is, instead of this, I would just have modules, because we can have modules. Instead of having one little store, we're gonna have a bunch of modules. Now, in my index here, this could be a little bit tricky, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna import camel case from lodash/camel case. And we do need Lodash for this, so it's a little library. We're going to have to use at least this one element out of it. So we're going to add this, yarn add Lodash. And Lodash, if you're not familiar with it, it's kind of like a jQuery almost, but much better. It's just for plain JavaScript stuff. So const require module equals require dot context. Now what this is going to do is going to set the context for what we were requiring in. So everything in the current directory, and these are just other flags I have to pass. So this is what the match is. We're going to match for anything that's JS in this directory. Okay. And then we're going to define a variable called modules. Okay. So these are our modules that we're going to build up. So require module dot keys dot for each file name. So this will print out all the file names that we have in this directory, and all we want to do is make sure that it's not the index. So if file name is not equal to ./index.js, then we're going to make this const module name equals camel case file name dot replace, and we're just going to get rid of the extension. And as well as any periods. Any periods or extension, we're just going to get rid of all that and replace it with nothing. This is a regular expression. If you're not familiar with regular expression, you can go to regexer.com and check it out. But it's just matching any periods, and then we're doing an or matching any .js extension. So now what we're going to do is we're going to build out this modules. And the way we do that is modules, module name, so equals require module file name dot default. So we're requiring any default exports basically. So that way we can follow the regular ES6 syntax, and we're going to export this as our default. So essentially what this module is going to look like, it's going to look like an array. You're going to have to-do, which is the to-do module, essentially like that, whatever. And we're going to make sure that it's a camel case, so if there are multiple, whatever module, it's like this. So instead of actually having to string parse it and make our own camel casing, that's why the camel case is really cool. Okay, so in our to-do, we're going to go ahead and create the store. And here we go. Export default. One thing we definitely want to have is namespaced. This is true. I would always suggest have namespaced, because that way you can have, if any modules have the same action names, then they'll just get mixed up. So namespacing it, it's also cleaner to understand what module that you're calling an action on, as well as you can do special things with it here, and I'll show you in a little bit on a little trick that you can do. So we're going to give it a state of to-dos. We're going to have some getters. And to-dos it's going to be a function, and it passes in state, and we'll just return state.todos. We can have all kinds of getters. We can have, limit 10 or something like that. State.todos splice 0 or slice whatever 0 10. You probably don't want to do splice. Splice actually modifies the original array. Slice just returns a new copy of the array. So be careful about that. But anyways, you can have all kinds of getters, but we're just keep it simple for now. Then we're going to have actions, and we're going to have async action here. If you're not for sure what async await is, I would definitely go look up that first. It's a beautiful way to do promise-based calls. So it takes in you always want to take in commit in our action. And commit was how you commit the mutation. So action is the call to the back end or whatever you want, and then commit would be the mutation to modify the data that we have. So const to-dos, I'm going to do a call to JSON placeholder. And we're just going to use the fetch API with the await, https:/JSON placeholder.typecode.com/todos. JSON placeholder, you can go look it up. I'm not going to really show you here, but they just offer generic data if you want to just fill out a page real quick with some generic data. So really nice. Then we're going to commit this to add to-dos. And we're just going to do another await to-dos.json, just because the implementation on how fetch works, it returns a promise as well, and that promise needs to be resolved as JSON so you can actually get that back. Okay. Then we're going to have some mutations, and we're going to add to-dos, which is a function, and it takes state as well as our to-dos, which is being passed in here. State's the first thing that gets passed in, it gets injected, and then we're passing in our to-dos. All right, so we're just going to say state.todos equals to-dos. So now we've actually gotten the data from the server, and we've put it on our state. And then our getter will show us that we have that. Okay. So now, because we're importing the modules straight from the index, we're just putting it right on here. it's going to show up in our application. Now what we want to do here, there's a little bit of a trick. I'm going to get my notes here real quick so I don't mess this up. But what it is you loop over each module, and then you just say if module dot actions and module dot actions dot init store, then we're just going to store dot dispatch. Okay. And we can't really do this the way we're set up right now because we don't have the store. We need to have a store as a variable. So const store equals, and then we'll export that. So I'm going to explain this to you. So we're looping over each module, and like I said, module is going to have that object on it. So we're just checking to see if that module has any actions, and our to-do store does have actions. So if a store maybe doesn't have actions, then there's no point in worrying about it. Then we're going to check to see if it has an init store method, and we do. We have an init store. Every module, my personal opinion, every module should have an init store. They're just gathering data for themselves. Maybe you can have init stores for just like global data, but any kind of initializer data is really what you want. So if that init store is there, then we're going to run the dispatch, which just fires that method. Now, because we namespaced it, we have the module name right here, which is going to be to do. Actually, it's going to be all lowercase. To do / init store, which is what it's going to come out to look like. So if it wasn't namespaced, then you'd have to call init store like this, and if every module has an init store, it might fire one. I don't know. I've never tried it. I wouldn't try it. It's silly to me because I want to have maybe 5 or 6 modules that might have an init store, maybe 1, maybe 2. I don't know. It depends on how many calls I want to make to the back end immediately when my application loads up. You obviously want to limit that, obviously. But you want to work with your backend code on making the best determination on who's going to call to gather the initializer data. Okay, so now that we got that, what we're going to do is we're going to go into one of our components. We're probably just going to go right into our Hello World component here. Okay, our Hello World component. We got a lot of junk in here. I'm going to clean out some of this stuff actually. So let's just bring this down. I'll get rid of this stuff right here. Actually, I don't care about joining online either. Welcome to Vuetify. We'll just have welcome to Vuetify. There's a lot of links and stuff in here that I don't need in the data. This came with Vuetify. All right, so we'll just clear it out, make it look nice and clean. What we want to do is import map getters and map actions from vuex. Okay, let's make sure our app is still loading. We have an error. To do is not defined. Store.js. Oh, silly me. I bet you guys are sitting like, hey, you didn't put module back. All right. Good to go. All right, we are good to go. So let's go back to our Hello World module here. Map getters and map actions is just how we get the data from our stores. And what I want to do is put on a computed here. We're just going to, this is the spread operator. It just, whatever we got on our map, any getters we have, we just toss it on the subject. We're just extending it basically. Map getters. So we call our map getters to do. Is our namespaced module that we want to call, and then we just get whatever getters on that class that we want to have. So I have one getter, which is to-dos, if you remember. Here, my getters, to-dos, and I want it on there. I'm going to close some of these files here. I don't know about you guys, but I tend to leave a lot of files open all the time. It gets a little messy. But, so, Now that we got our to-dos, we're just gonna do this for now, and we're gonna do the actions in a little bit. But what I want to do is just make a, say in here, I'll make a div, and we'll do v4 to do in to-dos, so we can access our to-dos directly like that. You don't have to access any special thing. So to do, I know that to do comes down as an object with a title on it. And if we want to look at that, we can go in here and look at our to-dos. So and we have an error. Sweet. Oh yeah, sorry. Our pug, we have to do the pipe sign here to make sure it's text below the next line. Every next line in pug, you have to have a pipe. We could do this on the same line if we want though. So it doesn't have to be next line. All right. We see we got our to-dos. We're printing them out on the page. And you can look at the objects. They got completed on there, ID, title, and user ID. So you can even like make a to-do world application where you can set the completed to true or false and display them however you want. So now that we got that done, we have all our to-dos. It's looking really good. We're going to map some actions here. Map actions. So we don't have any other actions besides our init store. So just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to create an action. To do is our guy, and let's just call it limit. I don't know. This is just for demonstration purposes, nothing permanent. You probably wouldn't do this in a real world application. So our limit, what we're going to do is just something silly, just to show that everything's working correctly. We're going to add another action in our to-do here, limit, and this comes with a commit as well. We're not going to hit a backend, so we don't really care about asynchronous at all. We're just going to commit immediately, and we'll just call it limit to-dos. Okay. Then down here, we're going to add the mutation, limit. All right. I know it seems a little bit redundant because you can just, actually modify the state directly in here. But this is the best way to go about it. Always keep those separated, the mutations and actions, even if it's just mutating an action in the same time. So state.todos, we're just going to set them equal to state.todos.splice. And this will actually modify the original array. So it'll change the to-dos. This is not the greatest way to go about it. Normally you'd have another property on here, but just for demonstration purposes, I'm just showing you how to fire some actions in the view in our component right here. So nothing's happening yet. We don't have any way to fire this action. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to add a little button here. So we'll add a little div here, and then we do a colon if you want to have another tag directly after that as well. And we'll do via on click equals limit. That's our method. And we'll just have limit to do's. So this is actually directly on the global scope of the file, essentially, the word limit, which is the action coming from our. Okay, so we see our limit to do's button here. And obviously it's not really styled. The reason being is if you look at this, then you'll see that there's some styling here. And I believe it came from Vuetify. It doesn't really say what the style is from, but we can go ahead and style that really simply. We'd say background, black, color, white, padding, 10 pixels. I don't know, cursor, pointer. So then it looks like a nicer button here. So when we click on this here, it limits our to-dos to 10. And then if you want to copy this, it's instead of copying it from here, it's really easy to just hit the inspector style sheet. And the cool thing, I love to do all my styles in the console here because you can just change things and see it immediately change as you do it. So then I will hit the inspector style sheet, and I can see all my styles show up right here, and I just copy them and I paste them in here. So I'll throw a style tag in here. Now what I'll do is I'll do less with scoped, because I always do it less with scoped, unless it's supposed to be global. And then when you refresh, it looks like the button that you created. And click on it again, and it works. And that's about it for chapter 3. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. And I'll be recording my next video here soon.